Do I have any shot? I don't. I just have
You
no
know what?
idea.
Maybe you do. You're in the dance.
Yeah, I'm in the dance and I have 6 players.
Yeah.
And it's a good 6.
Jordan, are we live?
Oh. But I'm like, do people just have like 12 out there? I don't know.
Probably not, because it'd be pretty difficult to get Kansas City through with, right? Like with that many.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I'm saying it's tough. Why does my camera keep doing this? Hold on.
My computer's been doing a thing where I wake up, it has no battery. There's no battery every morning. You ever get that?
Well, do you keep it plugged in a lot?
No.
You don't?
No.
I've killed so many batteries from never unplugging
I
it.
only use this computer for this. Very shady.
Oh, I don't know. Well, it's working at least. Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL First Look Strategy Show, the final one of the year. Sad stuff. I mean, do we just... I guess not. There's the best ball space is so saturated, but there may be times
those already. That's crazy.
There may be times during the summer where we just jump on and do some drafts just because why not?
Absolutely. We're gonna have a lot of that type of stuff.
You're in it now. I've been trying to get you to do this for 3 years.
Well, I'll definitely be in it if I have a good showing Sunday. I need a good showing.
You'll be in it regardless.
Sunday, desperately, especially after the betting. So we're not going to start the show with just Ben Rasa complaining, but no joke, the calendar flip. I had an inferno January. I honestly have to be like, I don't know, under 15% winners in February. I'm getting triple smoked.
I don't know why you haven't caught on. Anytime you tell me that, when you go like, dude, I can't miss right now.
Yep,
like
every time
lining up, every single time, because you told me this on like, I don't know, January 30th.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Every single time you say that, it flips to the negative and turns bad. I usually try to not say anything at all because I'm superstitious. Wow. Unless it's like a good full month. Then it's hard not to be like, hey, had a great month.
That's what I had. I had a great January.
I guess that's fair.
It was the last month. I put a bow on it, and now I'm in disaster mode. But we got the Super Bowl to bail us out. And yeah, I'm really excited. I don't know, Chad. I know we're going to talk all things about the slate, betting, and DFS. But if anyone in there is in the S-Ball finals, let us know. And let us know, what your team looks like. I'd be very interested to see if we have any viewers that are live.
I bet we do.
I'm sure we do.
Anyway, happy to have you guys with us. It is Super Bowl 59. Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, monster prize pools for this. No surprise, right? I mean, it's the final NFL showing of the season. I'll be the first one to tell you. It's probably, and it doesn't make a difference because we'll all be playing and we'll all be betting it. It's probably, and I'm not, whether the Eagles are in it or not is irrelevant to me. It's probably my least favorite game of the season.
Yeah, I don't hear me when I say this. I don't really pay attention to the Super Bowl. That doesn't mean I don't watch or anything like that. I've always said it's more of a party or entertaining day than like a 7 hours of commercial free football day where I'm like focused.
Which I also prefer less. Like, don't get me wrong. The part, like all of that stuff is fun. It's great. The Eagles are in. I'm very excited, but I'm talking strictly from like a DFS and betting angle. Definitely. That I'd rather just have more angles. I'd rather have more ways to find bets. Even this isn't to say it entirely, but like last week when you and I did this show, the prop market wasn't as picked over. Probably isn't fully because you know how people work, but at the same time, there's just Super Bowl content everywhere. Whereas if you're looking at the random like Jets and Dolphins game at 1 p.m. on October 21st, whole lot different.
Whole lot different. And yeah, things get earlier and earlier. So many people, including us, have provided content and there's value out there. I do want to ask just a couple philosophical questions. This more for my own interest. How different does it look for you that it's the Eagles? Like, would your day be different if it was, say, like the Rams?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like we're having a party here. I'd have no interest in doing that. in the event that it was other
Just
teams.
okay.
I'd probably like you get together with a couple buddies maybe and watch it, but like a Super Bowl party, Eagles compared to another team around here, it's dramatically different, right? Where on one hand, the only rooting interest is going to be what you bet, or in my case, you know, what I bet and what I have in DFS lineups. Whereas with the Eagles now, there's a lot of rooting interest, a lot of diehards that if they end up losing, which is very possible, they're slight dogs in New Orleans, it's going to be a miserable end to the night. That's the difference, right? Like the only way
stakes are high.
Yeah, the only way the night ends badly, if it's not an Eagles team, is like someone maybe gets a little bit too drunk and you got to tell them to settle down a little bit. But if the Eagles lose and just everyone goes home miserable, it's not a night that you want to really remember.
I can imagine. Yeah. I mean,
but it could also be a night that you'll never forget, right? That isn't that an odd thing? Like it all
you have to have
out.
both of them. You can't have one without the other. The stakes have to be high. Yeah.
Right.
Like my Super Bowl, there's no, barring betting and DFS, my own monetary play, like the game, there is no way that it could end badly. Like I prefer the Eagles to win because I like them, but if the Chiefs win, I really won't care.
Right. And I don't blame you. That's how I feel every year the Eagles aren't in it. Anyway, happy to have you guys here. If you don't mind, take a single second, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below. Everything's free. All of that is free. Commenting, subscribing, hitting the thumbs up, and it helps us a lot. Appreciate you being with us all season. Let's get into it, man. So we figured we'd do things a little differently here. First, just kind of break the game down a bit because we're still a little bit out. We'll have data by tomorrow when Greg and I do. Well, actually, Greg's going to be out, so I don't know who's on that with me. What's that?
I was wondering that myself. I almost asked you that before the show.
Who knows? Maybe it'll be you.
I was just to say it might be me. I just don't even know.
The single lineup sim show. We'll have the actual sim show. That's going to help us a lot, especially on a Super Bowl slate going into Sunday. But we're going to take a look at the game, and then we're going to build lineups out. I think that's probably the most helpful way to do it. We can look at some bets, some props, some fun stuff there. But ultimately, man, I think the best way to do this right now is just start building some lineups.
That's the key because I don't see much value in being like, well, Mahomes or Hurts, who you got? And it's like, what do you mean? This flip a coin. What do I, these are top end players. They're in the Super Bowl come on. How is that helpful?
It's not. And to go through each position and go, well, he looks good. Yeah, it doesn't.
He could be in play.
Yeah. I don't hate him. Yeah, it's
flyer.
Yeah,
he's a GPP flyer.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are we doing?
Yeah, I'll have a little bit, but it's more just about roster construction. We can build some stuff that looks, semi-normal. You could also build stuff based on the format, right? If you wanted to do like smaller field, single entry stuff, maybe large field, MME, all that stuff. Like even the mini max and the play action, those type of spots, you're going to be building different lineups for them one way or another. So, initial thoughts on the game. Is there any specific way you see this going? And I don't say that. I know this is always one of those games that could end 2017 or, 42-38. Last time they played, right, it was 38-35. The James Bradbury holding call resulted in a field goal. May have been a touchdown. Can't remember. But either way, very, very competitive game from start to finish. It is a better Eagles team than it was in the past. Significantly better defense, better secondary, better offense. It's also Patrick Mahomes. It's also Andy Reid. It's also Steve Spagnuolo. So when I look at a game like this, Ben, I'll be honest, it's one team has a definitively better roster. That is not to say the Chiefs don't have a good roster. They obviously do, right? But I think I know the edge goes to the Eagles there from a talent perspective. On the other hand, you've got a better coaching staff, a more winning coaching staff, likely an all-time quarterback who's looking to three-peat, a guy who's never lost in a true dome game, a guy who is 8-0 against Vic Fangio coach defenses. The list goes on. So there's definitely more than one way to look at this game.
Yeah, I mean, the things I like, again, I'll take the Eagles slant first. A, I do think you have a superior team, and B, you're a lower variance team. And when you're better and you're lower variance, typically that's a recipe for success because you can lean on your advantages in a lower variance way. And what I'm alluding to is the Eagles can run the ball. And when you run the ball, yes, could Saquon fumble 3 times and knowing the Chiefs that'll happen? Sure, but it's a lot different than when you play some like boom bust style and then sometimes you don't complete the home run balls or things of that nature. And so I actually thought the Bills, I said this, and it's not to take away from the Chiefs. I thought the Bills played objectively bad in that game.
So
I
did
didn't think
I.
Kansas City was outstanding. They were good enough to win, and that's one of their best qualities. They just do what they need to do. But I thought the Bills had pretty good success running the ball. They were over 4.5 yards per carry. If the Eagles employ the game plan that people are thinking, I actually think it could be a game that actually just plays to the stereotypical mindset, which is the Eagles control time of possession, control rushing, and win the game.
That's what it comes down to because the Chiefs are kind of, I said it the other day, they just kind of surgically dissect defenses where it used to be a lot of big splash plays, especially when you had Tyreek Hill, even a slightly fresher Travis Kelce. It is a different team, but they can still move the ball. They still have a good defense. I think defensively they could confuse Hurts at times as well. That scares me. But you're right. I mean, look, have you seen what the money line is now on? I bet the money line, I think, at plus 116 or plus 118 on FanDuel. That was the moment it came out, right? I figure, okay, got to do it. Got to do it. Mostly, Ben, not because it's a homer thing as much as it is, I think this is like a straight even game. It's down to plus 102.
Yeah, I mean, this is as close of a
Feels like
toss-up
a
game.
pick 'em, right?
It does. I look and Baltimore is known as that team who controls the clock, who leans on the running game and just kind of churns you up. The Eagles have 3 more rushing attempts per game than the Ravens this year. Like the Eagles are that even more this year. And I don't know. I feel pretty good. Now, if Kansas City, this is a small thing. They were able to stop even the Josh Allen sneak. Like if they can find these little ways to stop these type of things, more power to them. They probably win the game. But I still haven't seen a team really stifle what the Eagles can do. It is not an easy team to scheme for.
It's a good matchup. I know nobody wanted this matchup, right? I know everybody wanted, Commanders in there. Just like Commanders in the Super Bowl would have, that could have ended so badly if they just got annihilated.
I mean, yeah, I was not rooting for the Commanders, let me tell you.
But most people are like, oh, we wanted Bills Commanders, which fine. But I mean, this is a good matchup. It's just people are sick of the Bill or the Chiefs. And I guess to some extent they're sick of the Eagles, but the Eagles have only won it once ever. So they're sick of the Chiefs. I don't blame them. And it is what it is.
I mean, I'm sick of them too, but I do like that. I would rather have the Chiefs go down in the Super Bowl or have the chance to three-peat. Like, sure, if they would have got knocked off in the division or whatever, by the Bills, or I guess the Texans, but it's poetic in a way for them to go down. It's cool to see it potentially in the Super Bowl. And if they do it, credit to them. They won 3 straight. I mean, what can you say?
Crazy. Yeah. The Eagles were a win. That win the Eagles had against the Patriots kept it because the Patriots won the year before and the year after that. So that would have been a three-peat, but wasn't. So I don't know. Maybe they can stifle them. We'll see. You ready to build some lineups here?
Oh, yeah.
And what's your bet? Did you bet this game yet?
I have not bet this game at all. I put in some of the bets on our show last week, mostly around like Pacheco and Goddard, things like that. I just wanted to point this out. I saw this yesterday, and it just shows how crazy the year has been that the Eagles were plus 2.5 going into New Orleans this year. That's where that closed. And I remember, early in the year, I remember New Orleans was just absolutely dominant. Now you look back, and it's just so crazy to see these little snippets of the season and how not indicative it is of anything.
What's even wilder is that opened Eagles -3.
I mean,
And
New
the
Orleans,
Eagles lost to the Falcons in prime time, and the Saints rolled the Cowboys, right?
people were like, "Oh my
And
God, the Saints," and then they disgraced themselves.
disgraced themselves. Yeah. It went bad so quickly. So quick. All right, so you don't we did bet some props. You didn't bet any I grabbed the Eagles money line at that number, but that's it so far. And a couple props like Juju under 1.5 receptions. That was a portfolio EV play.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've snagged a couple off the tools, here and there, nothing major yet, but
I don't think you're gonna get a ton for the super. Like I just don't think value is gonna be abundant like it would be for a regular week 10 slate.
the other problem, just to give again, and we're going to talk plenty about this. The reality situation is you really need sources of truth, and what I mean by that is you need all the books to have the same synergy with lines. And the problem with the Super Bowl is the lines are so bizarre. Sometimes it's only one book that's like, what will be more, Steph Curry threes or Patrick Mahomes 30-yard passes? And it's like, okay, how am I supposed to really formulate true odds on that? Like, who is sourcing that?
Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah, the super book when that comes out, they always have those crazy cross sport props, like
Yeah.
endless amounts of them.
You have to originate those though, because there's really no way to,
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
for
think,
sure.
source them. Yeah. So
But what I'm saying is the standard props, you're going to find some value here and there. I just think it's also going to be less than you'd normally get, even if it were just one game, because look around, like pull up the props on the live odds screen and look at the rushing, receiving, receptions, all that stuff. They're pretty close. You're going to see a little bit. Like last I looked, AJ Brown was 72.5 in some spots, 69.5 in some,
yeah.
Ben. But then there's just more juice on one number. So it's not, I haven't come across any crazy discrepancies. I'll even go a step further for you. Usually there's wild discrepancies for touchdowns, like anytime touchdowns. There's a couple, but nothing really significant.
Yeah. It, like I said, I don't think it's gonna be, we'll pick off some small edges, but it's gonna be more if there's any news, and I don't think we're waiting on much. I guess I'm not worried about Gainwell playing, and I don't think it really matters, but I haven't seen a confirmation that he's cleared protocol.
Yeah, I
But
assume I would
he's
think
fine.
he plays.
The Eagles also, I'm not saying they're doing anything, but like they kind of pulled the same stunt with Hurts. Remember when we were talking about like, oh, do you think Hurts plays? And we both were pretty adamant that he's definitely gonna play.
Yeah, it
Like
wasn't even a question.
I think Gainwell's just, and again, he's a small piece. I wouldn't be stunned to see him have under 5 total touches.
I'll say this though. If he doesn't play, this might sound extreme. Saquon Barkley looks even better because guess who they use a lot of times in 2-minute drills? They use Kenny Gainwell. Who spells Saquon Barkley? Kenny Gainwell. I'm not saying that Will Shipley might not come in for one or two, but this is a rookie who has how many career carries does Will Shipley? Will Shipley has 34 career attempts
More than
and
I would have thought, honestly.
way more than I would have thought. It's because the blowout against the Giants, he had 8. Blowout against Dallas, he had 9. Blowout against the Giants again, or no, sorry, sat the starters, he had 10. And then blowout last week in the playoffs, he had 4. I like Will Shipley. All I'm saying is that they're not using Will Shipley in the 2-minute drill over Saquon if Gainwell sits.
Hope Gainwell is all right, but if I had my choice, I would prefer that he sat in this game because I think it's going to create value for us in that Will Shipley will be over-owned in Showdown. And I think there's a real chance that nobody does anything then. Like they just have Saquon literally play 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
I 100% agree.
so I kind of want that because I think the natural logic will be like, oh, Gainwell's out. Shipley just had a good game. I'll go to him. And I don't see that at all. So
Not no. That game was out of reach. It was even if he fumbled twice, it's still not a game.
yeah, no, I mean, it was nothing.
You know what else I'd look to though? Barkley over 12.5 receiving yards on FanDuel. Penny's got it at 13.5 with a little bit more juice. 12.5 on FanDuel to me. That would be a spot. I'd bet it would come up too. And it's not like Barkley can't play 100% of snaps. The only way I think he'd come off the field is if he rips like a 60-yarder and gets tripped up at the 5.
Yeah, and that doesn't. Again, I'm not saying you won't come off the field. That's great. Then they'll just go to Jalen Hurts. Like
yes, correct.
they don't. That's fine. Yeah, I mean the thing I like about something like that with Saquon, A, obviously you're getting a good number, but B, you have 2 outs, and I always look for bets with multiple outs. 1, he could have like 4 receptions. That's not impossible. And if he has that, he's going over. 2, he could have 1 reception and just break it for like 20 yards. That's also not insane at all with Saquon. So it's like you have the volume out. You also just have the explosiveness out. I don't think that that's far-fetched at all. I haven't bet that. I didn't even think about betting that, but you like that more than combining. People are going to combine, rushing, receiving.
What do you mean? Do I like it more than rushing plus receiving yards?
Like to isolate where
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Because this is the Super Bowl. Saquon Barkley's been the best running back. Some would argue best player. I'll stick with best running back in the league this year. And when it all comes down to it, I think they would use Gainwell. I'm not saying that the Gainwell wouldn't get a couple looks, but I would assume that Barkley's involvement is going to be highly, highly significant. And, just seeing them put this receiving prop where it is, I think Kellen Moore and them are going to try things. And I'd rather, because if you want to bet the over on receptions for Barkley, it's insane. It's like minus 188 over 1.5, plus 144 would be your best number over 2.5. I don't want to bet over 2.5. I'd rather just hope that, they, wheel route, however you want to, because he can do that. And we've seen it. That's what I'd rather do. So I like the 12.5. And of course, from a DFS angle, Saquon Barkley is the most expensive play for a pretty good reason.
Yeah. I mean, he's the one thing, and we're going to get into some wacky lineup builds, I think is a little different here, at least, is there are so many superstars on this slate. At least there are other ways to spend your money. When we were talking about the 2-game slate for the championship games, I was on a show with Bellman, and we were talking through the games, and we got to the point with Saquon, and I was pretty adamant that it's not even about if he has a good game or not. He's just, even in a bad game, raw points getting there. And I don't think that's the same for this showdown. Like, if there are other ways to spend your money, which is nice, it provides a little pivot.
So you're saying you could get away from Saquon?
I'm infinitely more likely. I didn't think there was a realistic way to get away from Saquon, even at like 80% ownership in the 2-game. It just didn't make sense to me because if you didn't play him, you were just doing like a 1v1 Saquon versus an inferior player, and that doesn't help you. You don't get that bonus.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And then with the 1.5x, with the multiplier on DraftKings, it's very possible that another just good game elsewhere could get you there. Whereas with Barkley at that price point, you captain him. Unless everyone else is terrible, he's going to need a huge game. Now, don't get me wrong. My guess is I'm still going to have a lot of Saquon Barkley.
Me too.
Me too. Do you think it makes more sense to just prioritize him as a flex play? By the way, I've hardly looked at building lineups out yet. So I'm just walking through this as we go.
So I think what it comes down to is a couple things. So if you go captain, you're immediately funneling probably to some of the lower salary guys, like the defenses, Juju types, Justin Watson. So if you like those guys, you have them maybe overprojected. You could say, okay, Saquon is going to be just out of control, and then I'll figure it out. the drawbacks to when you go to the highest priced guy at captain like that, it doesn't seem like it, but when you're talking about 294,000 lineups, there's actually not that many combinations of 5 people in the flex that you can do. And so now what? Like, what is exactly it's like when you punt captain and it's like, oh, this is amazing. I can just pick the 5 most expensive guys. It's like, yeah, of course. So can everybody else. It doesn't do as much. So I'd prefer Saquon as a flex play. I will certainly have some captain, but I think he's a better flex play, honestly.
I don't disagree. It's very expensive at captain. Again, it's fine, but he's expensive.
And that forces your
Einsteinian,
lineup.
yeah. Laffy, would you same game parlay Dotson over yards and anytime touchdown and under receptions? Yeah, look, if I were going to bet any overs on Dotson, yeah, I'd throw the under. What's his receptions? Is his receptions a half with just massive juice to the over, or is it 1.5 with massive juice to the under? It has to be one or the other. I can't imagine there's any in between here, Ben. There can't be. Yeah, it's okay. You'd have to, unless you can find alt under receptions, Einsteinium, I'm not sure where you're going to do it because everything I see is half of a reception. So no, I would not bet. I would.
I could lose that type of bet in February. I promise you.
I would not bet under receptions, but also to score a touchdown. If you can find the problem with alt receptions, Ben, is a lot of books are only offering one way. They're only offering the over
2+, 3+.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tricky. I get that logic. Yeah, like I said, the way I'm going, I believe it.
I mean, I don't think it's crazy to bet like over yards, anytime touchdown, and under receptions on a Hollywood Brown type, something like that.
Worthy.
Xavier Worthy's another one. Yeah, that stuff wouldn't. You know what I was thinking about this as you were talking and mentioning, and Einstein asked about Dotson as well. I was thinking this could be one of those games where it's just like super traditional football, nothing crazy. All of the, the usual suspects are involved. Like I was looking at total players to catch a pass.
That's always a fun one.
What's that?
That's always a fun prop. I like that prop a lot.
Yeah, and it was 13.5. But if you look at them individually, it's like 8.5 for Kansas City and 5.5 for Philly. Because with Philly, right, it's Barkley, it's Brown, it's Smith, it's Goddard, and then maybe one of Dotson, Calcaterra, or Gainwell. Again, I'd look to the under on that. If Gainwell sits, you might have an out there, right? Because I don't think you're going to see somebody like Will Shipley. So it could be traditional and you could see it played like that, or you might just see something crazy that completely blows this slate up. Like truly, you might see something that just blows the slate up from a cheap guy that gets one target and it works on a play that this team had in the back pocket all year long.
So we saw that with, I believe, and I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that was the case in the Eagles Commanders game a little bit, because the way it worked, randomly you needed and maybe Shipley boxed them out, but the Commanders faked a punt and it was like a 30-yard pass to a tight end, and it worked. I believe it was Surratt, but whoever the hell it was, he was a $200. There you go. He was a $200 player who caught a 20-yard pass and got 3, and it set you up for, and sometimes that's all it takes. I mean, whether you're talking about that prop or even like showdown, there is a bucket of players that I expect to get basically 0, but I acknowledge could be in the winning lineup. Pirine, Juju.
I mean, Noah they went Gray. To Pirine. Sorry, they went to Pirine to ice the game against the Bills last week.
That's what I mean. And if they didn't, I believe he gets 0? Did he do anything else in that game?
I thought it was his only catch.
He had 0 against Houston, and he had 1 target for 17 yards against the Bills, and that was to ice the game.
And if that just happens to go for a touchdown, You know?
That's what I mean.
Yeah. Noah Gray. Like Noah Gray's another one of those scoundrels who can clear like this guy zero targets last game.
Yep.
That's not zero targets. But he had 3 against Houston for 13. What does that mean? Nothing. It just means that there's instances like remember he had that this was maddening because I had a ton of Kelsey against Carolina where he had 4 on 4 targets for 66 and 2 touchdowns. The very game before that, he had 4 for 23 and 2 touchdowns. He had back-to-back 2 touchdown games this year. Weird things happen with Kansas City. So you have to be somewhat willing to get a little different if you're playing these large field tournaments and do things that on the surface might not look pretty. Because I'll tell you right now, man, if we just assume that it's only going to be the obvious plays, it's very possible that's not the case.
And you just mentioned that type, like take AJ Brown and Devontae Smith combined had less 2 touchdown games than Noah Gray this year. Like when you can score twice, that's slate breaking upside. Now his floor is 0. He probably gets 0, but that's just the way it is. Hey, Devin, good stuff. You were in New York for the weekend, my man. Right, with me, highly recommend Odd Chopper. Able to gain a 50 on 300 over the weekend. You live where you can bet. Highly recommend it. I love it.
Listen, man, I use it every day. I've been doing a live show. I just started it yesterday too, over on X. If you want to come and just snipe bets with me every day, probably around like 3 o'clock. Whenever I want to make it better for everybody out there. So like if it's 3 o'clock and a bunch of bets pop up on the board and we can bang out some parlays and we can just grab all of these top rated bets with good value, we're going to do it. But yeah, come hang out. Say what's up in the chat, man. If you guys would be so kind, help me build this show too. Goes a long way. If not, no big deal. We're busy people, but in the event that you decide to, I appreciate you in advance. Or you could check the tool out for yourself. I can't say more about it, dude. It's 75% off right now. Super Bowl sale. That gets you your first month for what? Less than $25, right? Under 25?
Less than $1 a day.
It's less than $1 a day. I do want to show you guys something because you hear me spew shit all the time. I'd rather you just see, like, this is just for, these all came in on Saturday. All of these videos from people going, dude, I just signed up and I absolutely dominated the month of January to kick off 2025. Look, these are all January. So I wouldn't bullshit you on this. 5,300. There's another one. Another big weekend. A lot of these guys start with small bankrolls, 87 units. They start with bankrolls that are small, like Greg did for the bankroll challenge, and you start to see just immense amount of profits compounding because you're reinvesting your bankroll and you're spending no time each day getting bets in because all we're doing, as Ben mentioned earlier, you're finding a source of truth. You're finding a source of truth. You're finding the discrepancies in the market. I bet everything from my phone with the mass entry tool. That's it. And if there's if there's not a mass entry available, look at that, 10,000 in January. I mean, what more can I say, man? SB75 at checkout. Links in the description. Jordan threw the link in the chat as well. SB75 when you check out, get your first month for less than $25. But that speaks for itself. Like the tool works. And unlike DFS, we can all win together. We're not playing against each other. We can all celebrate together, and there happens to be a downswing before the inevitable upswing, we can commiserate together as well in the Discord.
No doubt. And you saw those. That's what I loved about those screenshots. You get to see the little graph. The graphs don't go like this, just straight up of, a rocket ship. There's ebbs and flows. And that's what it should be. But the trajectory is so positive. And you can see, okay, a couple bad days, you stick with it, and really, really positive things happen. And I know, just for me, I built up a nice little nest egg that I'm going to fire on the showdown slate this week. I'm taking a lot of my portfolio EV plays, building that up, and then I'm going to shoot them into the lotto tickets. So it's a great opportunity. Listen, it's exciting. People are enjoying it, and the Discord allows you guys to mold it. Our devs are in there. You say, hey, I want to see this, or get this new book. Some of these states where you only have 1 or 2 books still make really good money. So make sure you don't say, oh, well, I don't have access to 10 books. That's the ideal. That helps. you have a couple books, get on there and still take advantage of that. There's no reason not to.
For sure. Anyway, SB75 link is down there. And if you have questions, please hit us up. Like
Yeah.
I'm anyone who's DM me about this will confirm I've answered the question as quick as I can in DMs to get them started because I
We
want
just had a
everybody
good
to
question.
succeed.
That's
I got it. Yeah, because you guys succeeding doesn't mean I don't succeed. You know, Robert asks, is there a unit size you guys recommend when starting in order for the service to be worth it? Honestly, no. Like Greg started with $100 to, proof of concept. And we have the bet size recommendation bankroll manager tool. So you just put your bankroll in there and it'll recommend based on the value, based on the EV, right? Based on our grading of each bet, it'll tell you how much to bet on each one of those. So you don't have that risk of ruin, but you can consistently build your bankroll. The only thing that's important is even if you start off with like a $200 bankroll, that you get all of that 200 in each day if you can, right? That's how it grows. Anyway, check it out. If you have questions, hit us up. SB75, that's 75% off. Essentially $75 off, $100 month, 25 for the month. All right.
Let's build a lineup.
Let's build a lineup. Let's build a couple lineups here. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean,
I want to actually start with Barkley at captain just to see what they look like.
Yeah, let's do it. I think that's super. So something I do a lot with our single lineup sim is I build lineups that I know I'm not going to use, but I'm going to say this is what I'm anticipate I'm going to be up against in satellites in small fields. And so I try to work around it. And I think Saquon at captain is a great lineup like that because there are certain players that I can feel almost positive are going to be in this lineup.
Yeah. How does Saquon at captain not have a lot of ownership?
Oh, it's going. And I'm not even saying it shouldn't. I just know that if you do that, you're probably going to funnel down to that mid tier.
Definitely. All right. Well, look, you have 6,400 per player remaining, right? Which it's not impossible, but you're going to have to eschew some of these top options. Hurts, Mahomes, Brown, Kelsey. Now DraftKings, unsurprisingly, softened the pricing a little bit, probably hope for the entrance of some casuals here, but it's not just easy. Like I think the Kelsey price makes a lot of sense. Xavier Worthy at 8K. I'm going to plug Worthy in there. The 8K price on Worthy. And again, we're seeing what this lineup would look like if we're going with the thought process of like, how do we build the best on paper lineup, right? Regardless of ownership. How do we build the best on paper lineup? What does that look like?
So yeah, it's going to be a matter to me of I think you're going to go Mahomes most likely here for people because he has pay down options. And even though it puts a little strain, you can do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Now, the question after this is, can we get one more expensive guy? Like if you go with Hurts here, you have 1,800 per the final two, which means that you'd be looking at like P. Ryan Dotson. You could do Juju Dotson. You could do Calcaterra Shipley. Right?
You have to double punt.
What's that?
You would have to double punt.
You definitely have to double punt. You could do like, maybe this isn't crazy. Noah Gray, Justin Watson.
So like I went.
It's actually not impossible.
No, it's definitely not impossible. I went Barkley at captain. Then I went Worthy, Mahomes, Goddard, Gray, and Hollywood Brown.
Worthy, Mahomes, Goddard, Gray, and Hollywood Brown.
So a kick out Hurts.
Yep.
And you go Gray and Hollywood Brown, and then you have Goddard there, and you have a 4-2.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's Barkley, Goddard. So no Hurts, Brown, or Devonta Smith. And then on the other side, the most notable one outside of the backfield, but I mean, is no Travis Kelce.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually think you could even make Goddard and Kelce work if you tried. You can't.
You would have to kick Saquon out of captain.
Right. All right. Or you go Barkley at captain,
Okay.
Mahomes, Goddard, Hollywood Brown, Kelce, and then that gets you to like a Dotson, Pirine, or Calcaterra. That's not crazy either. That's a Mahomes, Brown, Kelce. Honestly, throwing the Pirine in there actually looks decent.
I think I would go Justin Watson, to be honest.
And just leave a bunch on the table.
Yeah. I mean, if it's Mahomes,
Well, Pirine, if he does anything, it's going to be through the air. That's why I wasn't too worried about it.
Pirine makes also sense. I think for me, last guy there would be Dotson.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like by definition, then I think you want Hurts.
What you're saying? You swap out Mahomes for Hurts?
I'm saying if you're punting with Dotson, I don't know. My punt I want attached to my lone quarterback. I don't really get the point of having a third Eagle without Hurts.
No, I wasn't putting Dotson in.
No, I know. I'm saying of the $1,800 and cheaper options, to me, the Chiefs guys are all ahead of Dotson
Oh yeah, and Calcaterra for sure.
and Calcaterra because we have Mahomes.
Definitely. If you're punting here, you have. I'm not saying you have to, but going dual pass catchers for Philly without Hurts is pretty wild. I would go Watson or honestly, I don't hate this with Pirine. Barkley, Holly. Now you're not getting to Worthy here, which I don't think is crazy. Like you can't play everybody,
No.
but Barkley captain, Hollywood Brown, Patrick Mahomes, Goddard, and then Kelce and Pirine. So it's a Mahomes +3 with Brown, Kelce, and Pirine, plus Barkley and Goddard as the two Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, certainly on the Eagles side, particularly with Saquon, you don't need Hurts even if he's the captain. Like that's gonna be a part of a build. I think a sneaky build, but people are definitely gonna do it. I expect a lot of people to have Jalen Hurts at captain with like basically no Eagles pass catchers
I could
as a
see
way to
that.
be different. And just hope he scores 3 or 4 times on the ground, which is possible.
I mean, look at last game. Now,
He
that
almost
is an
had
outlier
5.
performance, but Hurts and Barkley combined for almost 70 DraftKings points.
It's one game. Like something crazy could happen just like that game. Like I said, I know this isn't expected, but you always have to think about there is a chance that one of these teams gets shut out, just has literally 0 points on the board. I'd say that's extremely unlikely, but it's not 0%. There's a chance that they score 10 points and the only touchdown is insignificant. Like you can do some really weird builds with those type of 31-3 Chiefs win. That if that happens, think how weird the optimal is going to look.
If that happens,
It's not impossible.
no, it's there's actually a bet on this. There is a will there be a shutout?
I'm sure there is, and I'm sure the odds are quite high.
Yeah, not as high as they should be though.
No, definitely not.
I mean, have you seen the hold on some of these?
Brutal.
It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how they get you.
Like, what do you think is fair when you've got like a plus 8,000? Like, what do you think the other side should be? What do you think the no should be? What's fair?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So like plus like 80-1 and the no instead of it being like
minus 1,000.
Yeah, it's like minus like
Or instead of where
like
it's
minus 40,000 probably. It's up.
right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Do
it
that.
should be minus 1,000. What I'm saying is that it's so like it's unbettable. The only side you can bet is the
Yeah.
massive long shot.
You see that in college basketball a lot. Like they'll give you a money line on a game. Teams like say 30-point underdog. The money line will be like plus 900.
Right.
Like, oh, okay, 9-1. The team to win who's favorite, it'll be legitimately minus 20,000.
Right.
And it's
So
like
you can't.
you can't bet that side.
They
It's just
post. That's what they post it, but it's you can't bet. You can't actually bet really either side.
no, because the fair line is clearly probably like 15-1, and you're just
Right.
taking the worst of it. Am I taking any shots on correct score? Those squares. I mean, I may do some squares just to gamble, but correct score. I mean, I don't think that that's that crazy. I might take some like 27-13 range square, bets, something like that. 31-13.
What's the one guy? George. Who's the guy that's all over Twitter now? The gambler. You have to know. Not GSP, but GR. Dude, you know who he is. He's the guy that like writes everything down on a piece of paper.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he's got.
Like
I can't think of his name.
Papadopoulos or something.
Yeah, it's like a Greek. I don't know. My Twitter is out of control for a lot of reasons. It's just I can't keep track of it. And what about him?
Oh, he just posted like he has 15 exact
I like
score
that
bets.
guy. I don't know him personally, but
If nothing else, that guy knows how to
he's
to
entertaining.
Twitter. Yeah, he knows how to Twitter. Yeah.
Jalen Carter. Yeah, Jalen Carter is going to have a big game. I agree.
Einsteinium, I hope you're right. I bet Aaron Donald is a long shot to win the MVP that year, and I really thought he should have. I thought he should have won it over Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, we went over that. That's that. If Jalen Carter is the most dominant force on the field, Saquon will be thrilled to hoist that trophy. That's just how it's going to work.
Yep. And like if you guys remember, Damian Williams should have won it a few years ago when Kansas City beat San Francisco. Do you remember that? He had like 150 yards, a receiving touchdown, a rushing touchdown. You could argue it's going to Mahomes. It's not going to
No, that's
Damian
just.
Williams.
But I'm trying to think of the big names. I'm talking like big names. Who do you think will be the sneakiest low-owned captain?
Great question. Wait, hold on. What would you consider big names? Like
I'm going to say everybody north of the made-up quarterback. You know how they put all the quarterbacks at flat 6?
the dead zone. Yep.
The dead
Yep.
zone. Everyone north of the dead zone.
Devonta.
I agree. And I think that's a pretty good move because he's got some upside. He's he doesn't break the bank. I kind of like him at captain. I think I'm going to be over on Smith at captain.
When you look at recent production, like the trajectory for Xavier Worthy is just so much better, you're right, than Devonta Smith. And, people are going to look and be like, wow, okay, what Devonta hasn't done anything this postseason. They look at Xavier Worthy, he's done a lot. Obviously, Kelsey. And then, would you just rather have A.J. Brown over Devonta Smith, even though Brown hasn't done a ton? And then the obvious, Barkley, Hurts, and Mahomes. Yeah, truthfully, I think Devonta Smith is the type of guy that could fly under the radar and end up being a stellar captain play. Here's another reason. Despite everything we hear about the Eagles, right? Yes, they like to run. No, Smith and Brown haven't been great in the postseason because they haven't needed to be. There is one thing that stands out, and that is that it's still concentrated. So, like, Devonta Smith is still going to play for sure 90+% of snaps. Maybe he's out there for almost every one of them, Ben. He's going to be on the field. And he is the type of guy, like we saw it against Dallas in week 17, 6 for 120 and 2 touchdowns. We saw it last year. There are spots where Devonta Smith truly can pop off. At 7,400, I say we build a lineup with Devonta Smith captain right now.
Let's do it. I think it's pretty clear. I know you can always get cute, but to me, obviously, I'm putting Hurts in those lineups. I'm just not messing around. It comes preloaded with Jalen Hurts for me.
Yeah. Yeah. With for sure. Because you're looking for the 2 touchdown game, or at least like the buck 50 receiving, right? You'd need a big game from Devontae Smith.
Definitely.
But I will say he's also not expensive. So it frees you up. You don't need a like a Super Bowl record breaking performance, but I'm with you. We'll throw Hurts in there with him.
To me, this is where it doesn't mean you have to do it this way, but this is the type of lineup where I may not get to Saquon.
I also think you could build it though where you go Saquon and without Hurts.
With Smith at captain.
Mm-hmm.
See, yeah, I'm not saying you can't do that, but I strongly prefer
So do
the,
I.
the generic route. I get it. You're just gonna need such a high scoring game because you're saying now like minimum maybe like 12-ish to 15 for Hertz is just not getting it done.
Well, no, I would lean more toward being a low scoring game
How? I see. I don't get that at all.
because Smith is like the one pass catcher to do something for Philly, where Hurts is it finishes with like 17
It just feels like in a low scoring game that's enough.
for Hurts.
Yeah. Like how are five other players lapping that?
Possible, but it could also just be that Hurts has a pedestrian game and Barkley does the rest of the work.
100%. Where I think it gets interesting is that Smith is so cheap that it's not a either or. You could have
Definitely.
Barkley, and now you have to have Mahomes beat Hurts too.
Right. I still prefer Hurts in the lineup.
Oh
for
no, of
sure.
course I get it. I get it. I'm conceptually trying to grasp how does Smith become the optimal captain? You have to suck up most of the salary for that to work without Hurts. But how is there enough points where Hurts is boxed out? Because you can't put AJ Brown and Saquon. I think that's just way too crazy.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that.
You can't go Smith, Brown, and Saquon with no Hurts.
You just box yourself out of way too much. Yeah. All right. So Smith Hurts. I'm honestly tempted to go. I think we go Mahomes.
Yeah, I think the most generic build.
Right.
And then it's
But
going to
that's
be
fine. We just want to see what works.
yeah. And then to me, the generic build here is you take one of Kelsey or Worthy.
Yep. If you were to go Kelsey here and then Goddard,
That's where I am too. You have 34. If Gainwell plays, this is a perfect lineup because you don't have Saquon.
if hmm, hold on a second. If you went Worthy, okay, so then you're at like DeAndre Hopkins.
Yep.
I'll tell you though, even with this being a non-Barkley lineup, I still think a build like this could be semi-popular because it's just you're still fitting in a lot of good plays.
Yeah, I mean, if you have, I'm not sure where you landed, but I have Smith, Hurts, Mahomes, Worthy, Goddard, and Hopkins with 300 left. I do think that'll be pretty I think where you could get crazy here is if you put in like
Gray over Hopkins.
I was thinking the Chiefs defense.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's definitely getting wild for sure. But I was also thinking if you went Gray or Juju or something like that, then you're leaving 2,700 on the table.
Yep.
Right? And I think there's going to be a lot of people. This is assuming you have Worthy over Kelsey. You're leaving a lot on the table. And I don't think you're going to see a ton where it has no Barkley and also money left over.
That's a very good point. I totally agree with that. See, now I'm getting into the most absurd lineups. Just look at this lineup. I want to be clear. This is an insane lineup. You have, okay, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, kick out Kelsey. So we've got Smith, Hurts, and Mahomes, and then you go Kareem Hunt, Dallas Goddard, and
And
Pacheco.
Chris Oladokun. Oh, uh, so Mahomes with 0 traditional pass catchers and 2 running backs.
Yeah.
Mahomes runs. Mahomes.
Mahomes score, or the Chiefs only have rushing touchdowns, and Mahomes has one.
It's not insane.
I mean, it is insane, but this is the type of lineup like I actually don't think will be duped.
But there's also something to be said about like if you look at the way the Chiefs produce in the Super, when the Chiefs faced the Eagles a couple of years ago, Pacheco had a pretty decent game. Mahomes rushed 6 for 44. He only threw for 182 yards, but he had 3 touchdowns, and it was super random. Ready? 1 for 5 and a touchdown. Kadarius Toney. This is what I'm saying. The Chiefs can do weird shit. Sky Moore, 1 for 4 and a touchdown. Okay? Jody Fortson had a target. MVS had a target. Look at how this worked. It was like Kelsey and Juju had 13 combined receptions. Then Watson had 2 for 18 on 2 targets. McKinnon 3 for 15. Gray 1 for 6. Toney 1 for 5. Moore 1 for 4. And 2 of those were touchdowns. So I think you see what I'm saying here. It is very much the type of team that it's not crazy to punt Chiefs in a showdown in the Super Bowl at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, if Sky Moore factors in here, I'm giving up. That's too much.
I'm not saying that's going to happen. It's a different team. But what I'm saying is that it could end up being like a.
No, I'm just saying he might be back, they say.
Really?
Yeah. I'd say personally, I don't see it, but it's not impossible that Sky Moore. That's what last I heard. I don't even know if he's in the pool.
But what I mean is, like, could it be a Justin Watson 1 for 20 and a touchdown? Nico Remigio gets 1 opportunity and catches a touchdown, or like some wild shit like that. So, yeah, that type of stuff happens. It's less likely to happen with Philly. Maybe you get like a Dotson touchdown or something, but it's just much less likely to happen. Look at last year as well. Travis Kelce, again, nice game, but no touchdowns. Mahomes threw for 333, had 2 touchdowns. Those touchdowns went to MVS, who had 20 total yards, and Mecole Hardman, who had 3 receptions on 3 targets for a touchdown, right? There's no telling, man. There really isn't.
I know we're going to get out of here in a minute. I think the kickers are also undervalued here.
Big time. In a dome, too.
In a dome, these are good defenses. I know they're aggressive offenses, but there's a world where this just devolves into a kicker game. And with all the firepower, everyone's just thinking about these offenses. I think the kickers are undervalued.
I couldn't agree more. Great defenses, too. And you could see this situation turn into like a game in between the 20s, right? Where you drive and stall. We've seen the Chiefs do that a lot. We've seen the Eagles do that a lot.
And I think both teams at certain points would be content to take points, particularly early in the game against this type of opponent. So you could get a game like that. No one's building for that either.
Yep. And Justin, I agree. So Watson's playing much less. He is for sure. But when he plays, it's in the red zone, it seems. Yeah. And he said it's annoying. Yep. Same with those odd Noah Gray opportunities, right? Like with Noah Gray just getting those red zone targets. And then you think it's Kelsey because it's 2 like big white tight ends that number starts with 8. And then you realize it isn't. Always confusing. The Watson 80 something, the Gray and the Kelsey.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, well, it's nice. I have both of them. And then they're like, Blake Bell, who's just activated. And you're like, wait, what? Like he's not even on the team.
Yeah. Yeah. Peyton Hendershot. Before we get out of here, and by the way, appreciate you guys hanging out. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back Friday. I don't know who's going to be with me. Greg's got a small medical procedure, so he'll be out.
Maybe it'll be me. I'll see what's going on.
Maybe it'll be you. You're the PGA guy. We got a PGA promo going on for people that want to get into it. The prize pools are massive for golf.
Now it gets serious. So I have been I've had a couple of people, and I appreciate this. I've been putting out some content on social. Our handles are there, but I haven't been playing a ton of PGA during football. And for me, the start of PGA honestly is Waste Management, and it's this week. And of course, we think that as a company because we're running our 50% off first payment. If you've used the Sims and you enjoyed them for football, take that power, take that knowledge, and put it into a sport like golf. There's big time money up for grabs, and this is a serious tournament. I love the Waste Management. I'm going to be doing a show tomorrow. I'm going to be having some fun with it. So if you've been thinking about it and if you've seen these tools for another sport, I'm going to get a 50% off your first payment with that code Waste Management Phoenix Open. Yeah, I can't wait. I love to sweat that during the Super Bowl.
WMPO, to be clear. You don't have to type in Waste Management Phoenix Open.
If you type in Waste Management Phoenix Open, I hope that it gives you some type of virus malware. don't do that, people. WMPO.
Yeah, man, 50% off first payment. So that could be week, month, doesn't matter. Anything, right? 50% off.
Even if you just, like I said, I totally, if you're unfamiliar with PGA golf, come and give it a week. It's the most underrated DFS sport. I can honestly say that the swings and the sweats are crazy with golf. Such a fun sport to play.
I think I'm going to jump back in.
It's so fun. It
no
really
joke,
is.
no, what you just said is, because I still remember being at a wedding and I had a real sweat. And I ended up not, because the swings are insane. But like I had a real true sweat and it was a Sunday wedding, right? And I ended up not materializing, but I couldn't take my eyes off my phone.
It's such a good sweat. And
every hole, it really, really is, man. You're getting me excited for this. I haven't played in a while.
I'm being completely, like I said, of course, combining the power of those tools, but you're talking about a DFS sport that a lot of people don't, they're like, oh, golf, it's boring. And I totally get some of those. It's such a good DFS sport. One of the best.
I know we have to go, but if people were to sign up, do you have any like suggestions or recommendations on how to optimize the Sims for this? Because it's a lot different than something like NFL where you're building out different positions with stacks and like all types of correlation.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could spend hours in this. Golf is obviously more like baseball where it's extremely high variance. The best players could be like the lowest scoring player on the slate. Whereas in football, what are the chances that Saquon gets outscored by Carson Wentz?
Right.
That can't happen. So it's just a different situation. What I would say, what the Sims do a great job of is they really help identify that word that we all talk about as leverage. And with golf, there's a lot of times a golfer is just not getting a lot of love in the ownership, and you got to take some of those swings. And so what I always use it as kind of that precursor. And it's not, I don't go there and just take the top lineup and say, oh, I'm done. I go and I sort and I favorite, 50, 150. And then I look through them and I say, okay, these are some interesting ones. And then I start to tweak a couple of them if I want. So I don't think it's different than that same process. The one thing that's really different, you're not talking as much correlation, like where you're saying, oh, quarterback +3. That golf, there's little things like that, but it's not as needed.
If you're playing like 20 lineups, do you think it's smart to set your uniques higher?
I do, just because in golf, again, there's no floor really, because you could get cut.
Right. And then it's a wrap. Yeah.
And guys get, obviously Scotty Scheffler's better than the last guy in the field, but there are tournaments where Scotty Scheffler loses to 80% of the field. And that just doesn't happen in the NBA, doesn't happen in the NFL. So I love some of the things that the tools allow you to do to have some cores, but also have some flyers, because any given week, look at the outright winners for golf. You're talking guys 80 to 1, 100 to 1 win these tournaments all the time.
I'm fucking sold, man.
It's so sick. It
I'm
really
very excited now. WMPO at checkout. That's what, 50% off anything. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I'm in. I always forget, but now, so it's Thursday morning.
Yes, sir.
Thursday morning.
Yep. Set those lineups and come on in. The water is warm. And you said this. This is not like some secondary sport. You're talking like 6-figure monster payouts, like big prize pools.
Yeah. Well, what do we have on DraftKings for this one?
I'm sure it's pretty big. Let me see. Let me go to the lobby.
Always log me out.
Yeah, 200,000 to first, $1 million prize pool.
We'll take it.
That'll play.
And you know what else? They actually have some really good like secondary, tertiary type contests as well.
Oh, yeah. The golf lobby is very solid. They've got good 3 maxes. They've got some like 10 maxes, which I like. good satellite. It's just solid stuff. Whew.
Sweet. Let's do it, man. I'm stoked. We'll see you guys. If you ever have questions, hit us up. My DMs are always open on Twitter. You can find Ben in Discord whenever. Shout out to Jordan for producing. We'll catch you back here for the next one. Peace. Yeah, I'm actually excited about this. Now,
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
You got me.
I haven't been playing as much, and I'm diving in this week.
Why? Just because the tournaments haven't been good?
And I just like with NFL.